for the past couple of days, the story that we end up spending the rest of the day talking about and the next day talking about hits right around noon Eastern. I was minding my own business on Monday and went to Twitter to tweet out a link of a story that I just posted coincidentally about Antonio Brown not facing league scrutiny for his recent guilty finding of reckless driving when he was going 100 miles an hour in the McKnight Road area of Pittsburgh. NFL takes the position that doesn't fall under the personal conduct policy. Getting ready to tweet that link, there was the tweet from Antonio Brown. Thank you, Steeler Nation, for a big 9 years. Time to move on and move forward. Deuces emoji, hashtag new demands. And so what you do if you cover the NFL for a living and you see that, you assume something's happened. What did I miss? Is there a trade deal in place that would send the Steelers receiver to the 49ers, to the Raiders, to someone? Is there something going on? And I immediately started to inquire, and the responses I got were like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, I don't know. You tell me. Antonio Brown's saying farewell to Pittsburgh. And as it turns out, there was no development. This was Antonio Brown just giving in to whatever frustration may be fueling him to try to agitate for a trade or a release. Nothing has happened in recent days between Brown and the Steelers. But through the effort to figure out what prompted this tweet, it became obvious, and multiple people reported, including ProFootballTalk.com, that Brown has officially and formally asked for a trade from the Steelers, and he still wants to be traded. Not a surprise if you listened to our interview of Terrell Owens from the Friday before Super Bowl week, when it became clear that, number one, Owens, who went through something like this with the Eagles 14 years ago, is mentoring Antonio Brown. And Owens believed, when we spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, that Brown wants out and should want out. And he clearly wants out because now he's saying goodbye before there's an official parting of the ways. This is inching toward that shirtless driveway sit-ups and next question on the front lawn press conference. And Drew Rosenhaus represents both guys, or represented. I don't know what the relationship now is between Rosenhaus and Owens, but he had Owens in 2005 and he has Brown now. So I don't know they're going to take the same approach, because Owens, who wanted either a new contract or an opportunity to go to a team that would give him one after that Super Bowl performance where he would have been the MVP if the Eagles had won the Super Bowl, he played with the broken leg. He wanted greater protections. He wanted more money up front. The Eagles wouldn't give it to him. So his plan was, I'm going to do everything I can to get out of here. And it got very ugly. Brown wants out. Is he going to do everything he can to get out? I don't know. Are the Steelers going to play hardball with Brown? I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. Because the last thing the Steelers need is a full season-long Antonio Brown drama. They need to move on from this. They need to turn the page on this guy. They have responsibility, partial responsibility for how it got to this point, because this guy came in as a sixth-round pick from one of the directional Michigan universities. I can't remember which one. I think it was Central Michigan. And so, like, he doesn't walk through the door as a diva. This isn't first overall pick in the draft. This isn't a guy who's going to be entitled from day one. Something happened that made him a guy who ends up being, chronically late, a guy who ends up, as it was reported by ESPN, having his own place that he stays in when the Steelers are at training camp and everyone's crammed into dorm rooms on those tiny dorm beds, and Antonio Brown's got his own place off site. There was a tale in that ESPN story about Antonio Brown waltzing into the locker room while everybody was ready to go, and he wasn't even in uniform yet. That's how late he was. How did it get to that point? The Steelers have responsibility for allowing it to get to that point. And here's the thing. They have validated Antonio Brown on multiple occasions by paying him big money in 2012 and by giving him another contract that paid him a $19 million signing bonus only weeks after he broadcast on Facebook Live from the locker room after the Steelers beat the Chiefs in a divisional playoff game. So his reward for that was a new contract. And now the Steelers are in this awkward spot where you got to convince him to stay, but you also have to lay down the law. Good luck with that. Please stay. Please stay. Things had better be different here. Please stay. Please choose to stay so we can impose all sorts of rules on you that we've never imposed on you in the past and make your day-to-day life more difficult than it's ever been. Please choose to stay. It's just a mess. It's not good. We're going to talk to Ed Bouchette of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette coming up. He had a column last week that argued that the Steelers should move on from Antonio Brown. Now the question becomes, what can they get by way of trade, and when can they work it out? I'm convinced 4 or 5 weeks ago when Art Rooney II, the owner of the team, went public and made it clear that the bridge was essentially burned back to Pittsburgh, that the for sale sign had been hammered into the front yard, and it was time for the auction to start. Who wants Antonio Brown? And see, that's the thing. You don't have to act like you want to keep him if you're confident that there are multiple teams out there that will bid the price higher and higher and higher until the Steelers say, yeah, that's the guy we'll trade Antonio Brown to. And remember, you can have a deal in place at any point up until the start of the league year. It's not official until the league year begins at 4 p.m. Eastern on March the 13th, but you can have the deal in place. We saw it last year when Alex Smith was traded to Washington. The deal was in place weeks before the deal could become official, but there's been no deal, which tells us the Steelers haven't gotten the offers they thought they were going to get. So what do they do now? Especially with Brown saying goodbye to Pittsburgh. That's not going to help the Steelers get more. That's going to make it harder for them to get what they want. And I think what they need to do now, you hold on to Antonio Brown until after the first couple of days of free agency, and maybe once the dust settles, maybe once any of the big names that make it to the market get signed by other teams, teams that need receivers may suddenly want Antonio Brown. So here's the problem, too. $2.5 million is due and payable to Antonio Brown the 5th day of the league year. What do? Do you trade him before it, or do you just pay the money and hope that the trade offers get better after the fact? Because I think the best window to trade him at this point may be after round 1 of the draft. Remember, there's like 18 hours between round 1 and round 2. It's been that way for about 10 years now. So after a team that may have been targeting a receiver in round 1 and doesn't get that receiver, after that team kind of goes back to plan where we go from here, we still have this glaring need at receiver, maybe second-round pick, third-round pick, whatever the case may be, gets offered to the Steelers then for Antonio Brown. So that's the challenge the Steelers face. I think that it's important to get this thing cleared up soon, but from the Steelers' perspective, maximizing the return on Brown may require allowing this to play out, even if it means paying him $2.5 million on the 5th day of the league year in March. Then there's the fact that whoever acquires Antonio Brown, he's due to make just under $39 million over the next 3 years. That's just under $13 million a year. That's pretty good as the receiver market goes. There's no guaranteed money, nothing. You've got maximum control of his rights. You've got flexibility. You're not locked into a $40 million payment. So, yeah, hey, we'll give you a second or a third-round pick for this guy when it's an advantageous contract for us. Here's the problem. Brown's probably going to want another bite from the apple. He's already had 2 long-term deals. He's probably going to want another one as part of his arrival in a new city. What do? Do you trade for a guy who walks through the door and says, I want more money, and you say no, and then he's as disgruntled with you as he is in Pittsburgh? That's one of the complications here. That doesn't get discussed much, but I think it's a safe bet that Brown is going to be looking to enhance his financial package with whoever would trade for him. And he's going to want guaranteed money. He's going to want a signing bonus. He's going to want injury guarantees. He's going to want a higher per-year average because there are guys out there now who are making more than he makes. And he's going to want to say, I'm still the best receiver, and the best evidence that I'm the best receiver is that I'm making more money than any other receiver. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And through it all, the Steelers are looking at a $21 million cap charge if they cut or trade this guy. I know that teams, especially the Steelers, they were very used to dictating terms to their players. And the players don't dictate terms to them. Well, they've been through this with Le'Veon Bell the past couple of years where Bell has dictated terms to them and they don't like it. So now, does that make them more determined to push back with Antonio Brown? Because, see, if you make it too easy for a guy to get out of town, you have to worry about the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. But at a time when the Steelers have so many of these issues, so much drama, so many distractions, do you really want this? Do you want Antonio Brown there when he is determined to get out? Do you want your 2019 season to be marred by Antonio Brown wanting out of Pittsburgh? What are the other veteran players going to say? What's Ben Roethlisberger going to say? What are these other players going to believe? What are they going to feel? How are they going to regard another lost opportunity to compete for a championship as the Patriots are in the process of potentially leapfrogging the Steelers with 7 Super Bowl trophies now that both teams are tied with 6. These are just some of the issues that the Steelers are going to have to deal with. And Ed Bouchette of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette has been all over the Antonio Brown story. We're going to talk to Ed Bouchette about how it got to this point, where it goes from here, and how he believes, based upon decades of covering the Steelers, they are going to find a way out of this maze in a manner that does minimal damage to the franchise and the team's hopes for 2019.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.